Hello, welcome to another Real Raw Moment. And tonight is one that's been coming up a lot in conversations within my coaching groups, within my support groups, and of course, even with myself. So I thought we'd talk about it, and that is the challenge of solving in the present with your case and in parental alienation and not litigating the past. Okay, before we get into it, let's get into what I'm not. I am not a doctor, lawyer, therapist, or any other accredited person who can be used as an example in your case. I am simply a two-time alienated parent who's been in the court system and in all of this legal morass for a decade, just over. And I believe that if I'm thinking it, hearing about it, seeing it, I'm not the only one. So I'm going to bring it forward and talk about it. As the internet says, for information and or entertainment purposes only. And as always, I welcome comments. In fact, it's the reason I do these videos is to get people talking. But please be kind and mindful. No vicious attacks and no accusations. Great conversations only. Okay, so let's get into it. What am I talking about when I'm saying solving in the present with your case and not litigating the past? Well, let's first talk about how emotional parental alienation is. High conflict, anything, divorce, separation, all very emotional, right? It's natural as human beings that we would dip to the past and look to the past to inform as to why we got here, how we got here, and where the future is going to go. Now, that's just in normal land. When you start to get into high conflict, and again, alienation is high conflict, the past can have a role to play in informing the present. What I found, and I'll speak for myself, I'm in another round of litigation right now. And if I let my mind go all over the place, I will pull out every single way in my mind that I feel I've been wronged, every piece of evidence that's emotional, and I'll put it all in one big basket and I'll just sit in it and hammer away more at that than I will about what the present case is about. So the law, again, I'm not a lawyer, just experienced this a lot. The law is not emotional, right? The law is, structured. We know this. It's not always fair. It's not always equitable. It doesn't even answer all of our questions, but there is a formality to it and there is a structure to it that doesn't allow for all of the emotions and feelings of being wronged that we feel. And I'm not here to say that you're wrong to feel those emotions. That's not what I'm saying at all. Again, I'm using myself as an example of I can really go down that path of all the things that are contributing to what I'm experiencing or dealing with today. So let's actually separate those two. What I'm dealing with, my case, the logic, the law, the questions, etc., and what I'm feeling. So whether it's your first time or your 10th time having to present something to a case conference, a trial, may have gotten served for the first time, it is really, again, natural to kind of look at those documents, look at them and go, yeah, but she, yeah, but he, but what about like 3 years ago when they did this? What about 5 years ago when they did this? What about this last week? What about this text? What about, it goes on and on and on. Now, any one of those items may have a place in your case. Just try not to rhyme there. They may have a place in your case. What doesn't generally have a place is continually and repeatedly bringing that bag of stuff to the present case. So what do I mean about solving the present? Well, again, within the law, within anything that we're served in a court case, and even within our parental alienation cases, what matters now, before you chirp at me, it does not mean that the history does not matter. What presently matters is what is present. What is the problem right now, and how can it be solved? One of my lawyers, I've had great lawyers, have taught me a lot. And what they've taught me the most, one in particular, is A, the judge doesn't want to see you at all. They have no interest in seeing you there, period. Secondly, they have no interest in being the referee in what technically should be something two adults can solve, especially two co-parents. Now, we know that that's not always the case, especially in high conflict. So there we are in front of the judge. But third, and in no particular order, and very important in my opinion, and it is an approach that I personally use, again, doesn't apply to you, it's what I personally use for my life, show me solutions. Show me ways to change this circumstance. Coming from a present solution-based position can do a lot for your case. Working with the present day, and when I say the present day could mean not yesterday, but today. Not today, but a week from now. What it's not representing is 5 years ago. Every fight, every thing in your relationship that now, with this new lens, this new light, could be interpreted as all leading up to this. So that kind of thinking or reasoning is an all or nothing proposition. And it doesn't always help. Now, I'm treading very carefully here because every case is different. And as always, these are my real raw moments. And I'm a human being with a lot of lived experience and some educational stuff too. And when I do these videos, that's what I offer, is my lived experience, also based on education, and of course, my opinions. And that's it. That's all it is. So I'm not here to fault anybody and say, well, do this or don't do that. I will always say that I encourage you to consider putting the past over here and first focusing on the present, the facts in the present, and what can be a solution. Now, again, it doesn't mean you're going to get that solution, right? If we're all reasonable co-parents, then we wouldn't be experiencing high conflict anything, and alienation wouldn't even exist. So obviously there are problems, right? Family court exists for those problems. But also the family court can tend to also prey on those emotions. And when we start to litigate the past, meaning we're going to go back 10 years, even though we've only been separated for 2, as an example, the family court doesn't need to discount that. I mean, if it's something that you really want to bring in and you want to do all the affidavits and all the things, there's a lot of lawyers out there who will say, yeah, well, let's do that. Let's go to trial. Let's do this. I'm coming from a place where I was taught differently by lawyers. And look, it's not a unicorn reason that I've learned this from lawyers. I just want to be very, very clear, because I've learned it from, yes, paid lawyers, and I've also learned it from pro bono lawyers. So there's no classism here as to how I've learned what I've learned or gained my opinion around staying present and not litigating the past. Staying present and not litigating the past, though, is something that's worked for me. Now, you can ask, well, Natalie, you're 10 years, 11 years into this. Yeah, I am. No doubt. And I was never the person to instigate any of the proceedings. And by staying in the present and solving for the present and not litigating the past and bringing it along with it, allowed me to get through each case in a way that everybody came out relatively intact, sort of, and move forward with some semblance of not being in the court system or in litigation. Again, we come to that minute mark where I have to remind everybody now that these are my real raw moments, my opinions, and they are not scripted. So I am talking. This is the first take of this, the only take of this. And so if it seems meandering, it is. And that's okay. Or you could try and bring it back to the topic, which in this case is solving for the present and not litigating the past. At some point, some aspects of the past need to be left there. Now, when I say left there, dealt with in a different manner, i.e. therapy. If you know me or if you've heard of me or you've watched something, I'm big on therapy. And actually, there's therapy today, which led to this video. The courts, or the general consensus, in my opinion and understanding, is also that up until the day that you separated, your marriage was okay. Now, again, I was abused. There's lots of abuse that goes on. And I'm not saying that it was hunky-dory, then your marriage ended and everything exploded. Of course, there's things that lead up to it. But in the court system for family court, it's not totally relevant because you were in that relationship. That's my understanding and my experience, my very, very lived experience. That's the feedback I've gotten from opposing counsel. This feedback I've gotten back from judges, and I've sat in front of a few and talked with even more. So why am I saying all of this anyhow? Why am I bothering even talking about it? Especially knowing that, I'm probably going to get chirped at. It's this. When you can focus on the present, solving for the present, it takes a real weight off of you. Because you're not carrying the backpack of everything else that happened. You can set that backpack aside, sit with a new pen and paper, figure out what is going on right now, what needs to be solved right now, without emotion. And that can be anything in alienation. What are the problems? What do you propose are the solutions? And if you need backup, you can reach into that backpack and be very selective about the brick or the tome that you choose to say, that ties with this. That makes sense. That's backing that up. And that's freeing. There is a lightness. And what I can say in all of this, we need some lightness sometimes. It is very difficult to be wearing that backpack, pulling the sled up the hill, rolling the rock, however many images that you ever want to use. And I use a lot of images. I know that. When you can set those down and say, I acknowledge that they're there. I acknowledge that they happened. They are still a part of my history, my story, and my life. And maybe I will need to reference those. But here we are. We've got to be present in the situation that we're in. So what situation are we in? And what are the proposed solutions or actions? It doesn't even have to be solutions, but actions to move forward and work with those first. Now, again, every case is different. This is a primary tenet that I apply to not only my own case, but also how I problem solve in life. So this is something I actually do live by, and I'm sharing it simply because I think there's a lot of people who want to put the backpack down and still be able to solve their case. At the end of the day, we all want peace. We want this to end in a healthy manner that prioritizes our children, that allows us to see our children, period. Allows us to be parents, to be mom, be dad, be grandma, be grandpa, whomever, caregiver. We all deserve that chance. And in order to get those chances, we've got to be a little strategic in how we approach it. And from my experience so far to date, after a decade, solving for the present and not litigating the past is one of the best ways to get from point A to point B into a resolution that everybody benefits from. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is possible. Comments below.